When it comes to writing, are you a plotter or a pantser? This was a question I was asked by a reader once after I had successfully published my first book. The look of confusion that covered both hers and my own face at the realisation that I had no idea what she was talking about was somewhat comical. Yes, I had really somehow managed to write and get published a novel without knowing anything or paying any attention to the greater writing community. I just did my own little thing, writing in my own little world. For those of you that are new here, let me introduce myself. My name is K.T.Kaye. I am a published author with 2 novels released and many more on the way. However, this was not my original career plan. I was originally an actress and did my degree and masters in theatre. I even had my own solo show for a while, and the wheelchair dances that I still upload just for fun to this channel were a part of that. I did not study writing, and because of this I have often felt lacking. I am still learning, still discovering new things about writing and about this industry, and I'm sure that there are other people out there, perhaps watching this video, who are like me, like to write but have never studied the art, and feel a little lost within the writing world. So I have decided to start a new series on this channel, where we uncover and learn about different aspects of writing together, and I share with you my writer's rambles. Now when I'm asked whether my writing style is that of a plotter or a pantser, I answer that I am neither. I'm more of a plantster, something in the middle, but I'll get to that later in the video. When it comes to writing and planning a novel, there are many different types of ways in which writers go about it. However, these different ways can usually be categorised into one of 3 different types: a plotter, a pantser and a plantster. In this video we're going to talk about these 3 different types, exploring what they mean and the pros and cons of all of them, and perhaps you might discover what type of writer you are in the process. Let us begin with the type that is the most self-explanatory: the plotters. Plotters are the type of writers who painstakingly plan and outline their stories before they start writing. If you're someone who spends a great deal of time fleshing out your outlines, character arcs, world building, plot structure before you even attempt your first draft, then you'll probably fall into this category. Plotters value knowing exactly what is going to happen, who all their characters are and the order in which things will occur before they settle down into writing. This means that when they go into the writing process, they already have a solid plan and intention of where their story is going, and this can save them a lot of time when it comes to writing their book. There are many pros to being a plotter, the obvious one being that you've already have everything planned out in your story and all you have to do is write it. Having a laid out plan also makes it easier to get over blocks and knots in your story, as you already know where the plot will go. It is harder to get stuck when you know what will happen next. And, in some instances, plotters are able to get their book written quicker once they start writing. The con of being a plotter, however, is that it can take a long time before you actually start writing. One of my fellow writer friends is a plotter, and they can spend months and months plotting out their stories before deciding whether or not they're actually going to write them. They are also quite confined to their plans, and when they get stuck or find something that they need to change, they end up having to redo their entire outline. And on some occasions, they redo and redo their outlines and never actually get to writing their novels. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the pantsers. The name pantser is believed to come from the saying, "flies by the seat of their pants," which means to decide a course of action as you go, using your own initiative and gut feelings rather than a predetermined plan. In the case of writing, this means to write without planning and outlining beforehand, or in the very least, planning only a little. Freedom and discovery are important aspects to the pantser writing style. Detailed plans and outlines aren't wanted or often possible for these types of writers, as their writing style, for the very first drafts in the least, are partly about discovering the story as they write it. They like to get lost in their story, letting their creativity and characters lead them to the story's conclusions. Stephen King is said to use the pantser style of writing for his works. The pros of being a pantser is that you get into writing quickly. The planning process is limited, and it is a great method of jump-starting your process and getting your creative juices flowing. You have the freedom to take your novel in any direction without worrying about the greater plan, and have the flexibility to change things as you go. If you don't like the way your plot is going, you can just change it. For instance, if you don't like a character, you can just kill them off without having to think about how this will ruin the future plot points. However, having no plan can make it easy for plot points to get lost and to become stuck. And if you get stuck, you have no ladder to help you get out. You have to create a solution out of the block, rather than following an outline that leads to the desired conclusion. This can lead to multiple abandoned projects. Pantser writers often leave one project for a new one, leaving many unfinished novels in their wake. Lastly, we have the plantsters. Plantsters are writers who are a mixture of plotters and pantsers, and this is the category in which I would place myself in. I do plot my stories before I write them, however my outlines are basic and simple, allowing me the freedom to pants my way through most of the writing. In my own case, I like to have a basic understanding of where my plot is going and the characters, but I do not like to rigidly structure my work, rather let the story and the characters make their own way from one plot point to another. Many plantsters will come up with the important details that will drive their story ideas. Perhaps it's their character arcs or subplots or the beginning, middle and end, but then will go rogue, as it were, during the actual writing process. The pros to being a plantster is that you get the best of both worlds. You get all the pros of being a plotter and those of being a pantser. You're able to plot your work but also allow yourself the flexibility to change things up as you go. Equally, you get all the cons of both too, as well as the issues of these two methods clashing on occasion. If you write too freely, then you will disrupt your planned outline, and this might mean you have to go back and redo parts of your plan. Or if you have planned too much, you may end up constraining yourself when it comes to actually writing. All three of these methods are valid and valuable styles of writing. There isn't one that is better than the other. There simply is that one that works best for you. As I've said before, writing is an individual and subjective process. What works for one does not work for all, and that's part of the beauty of being a writer. And that brings us to the end of this ramble and this video. What type of writer are you, and into which of these categories do you place yourself? Please comment below, as I would love to know what kind of writers you are and perhaps learning something about your process as well. Until next time, my lovely bookish friends.